please. All right, good morning, everybody, and welcome to, it's October already. Holy smokes. The first week of October. So this is our builders call that we do the first and third Tuesdays of the month, 9 a.m. Pacific. And it is dedicated and devoted to people that are committed to growing and building. So while we mostly focus on principles related to using influence in the areas of attraction and building an organization here with EXP, skill sets and principles are transferable into every area of life and aspects of the real estate, sales business as well. And so today's topic that we're going to jump into, I would love to have some audience participation because, and the more audience participation that we have today, the better for this conversation as far as engagement goes, because there's things that can happen. And I don't know if you guys have found this to be the case. However, my experience quite often when I'm going through things, going through challenges, going through, whatever, to this topic that we've got today of, hey, ever feel like throwing in the towel, is there's generally a certain set of conditions that are present that all come together in this recipe before actually feeling like getting to that precipice. And quite often, my discovery is that sometimes those will have there's an external set of circumstances having to do with that. And then that meaning the ones that I don't control. And then there's an internal set of circumstances having to do with that, meaning the things that I do control. And so for the purpose of our, conversation today, this isn't, meant to be like a pep talk or, something that's just gonna, fire you up until you get to like your lunch and then you're like, oh man, what did I do this morning? That's not the purpose of the conversation today. The purpose of today's conversation is to really get to that foundation, like the foundation, the essence for each one of you, for you to get that to that place in yourself and walk away from today's call feeling like you've got an additional layer of tools that when used can become skills that can help you strengthen the muscle of resilience in your business and in your life. And so when we look at this idea of throwing in the towel or getting to that feeling and that space around it, sometimes it's not one that we want to admit, right? Particularly, I mean, for those of you that are out, actively working with clients or actively working in a recruiting space to attract and build, it's like there's this idea of like, hey, the speed of leaders, the speed of the organization, like I've got to have it together. I've got to be, my best. I've got to have things firing on all cylinders for me to be effective. And when that doesn't happen, which is probably a good portion of the time for a lot of people because life is always happening in the background and we're navigating those things, we have those days where we're like in flow and unstoppable and everything we touch turns to gold and like look out because I've got nothing going on today, and by the end of the day it's like a totally different scenario. And there's times and there's moments where we have that, and the rest of the time, my experience and in working with people is that the majority of the time we're not in that space, and we're always working to get in that space or back into that space. And so when we're not in that space, and if we're not in that space and it's been a while since we've been in that space, what can start to happen is that we feel like isolated. And well, this is, this must be like, who else is feeling this the same way that I'm feeling this? And if you look around and you're not seeing that, you can isolate even further because you may feel like you're on an island. And there is an old proverb that says, the one isolating himself will seek his own selfish gain. Against all practical wisdom, he will break loose. Against all practical wisdom, he will break loose. Meaning that when we go into isolation, particularly when we're having challenges, struggles, obstacles, and the only voice that we're hearing is the one in our own head, and that voice may not be so perky, that the longer we withdraw, isolate, pull away, that we can become unreasonable, and our actual view of the world and perception can become so far disconnected from what actually is because of that isolation. So I'm excited to see so many people on the call today and in the conversation. For those of you that jump on calls with me, I love looking at you in the flesh, regardless of what you're wearing, what's going on in the background, because it's a lot more engaging and fun to be able to see people. Look at Tina. And Tina's got great artwork in the background all the time too. There's her bright shining face. Thank you for coming on video. So I'd love to kick off this conversation with, when you saw the topic for today's call, ever feel like throwing in the towel? What was it that had you jump on the call today? And we'll take a few shares on that before we go into the next layer of what we're going to talk about today. So what had you jump on the call today when you saw the topic?
I guess I can share.
Go for it.
Yeah, my name is Johnny, by the way.
Johnny,
So,
oh, you know what? Just one thing I forgot before taking shares and setting this up is,
yeah,
we've got people from, like, one of the great things about what we get to do at EXP is the collaboration, right? And so say your name and then also the market that you're in, because we pass referrals and people, you never know, may be looking for you by the end of the day based on where you're at.
okay, cool. So again, my name is Johnny. So I'm in Corona here in Southern California, Riverside County. So yeah, I mean, I was just in another meeting and somebody said, oh, this next meeting, throw in the towel, it's for those individuals that are maybe in that situation, right? So for me, I actually signed up with EXP about, it's going to be 3.5 months now. And my background's in mortgages, so I still have my mortgage license. And I'm thinking now, I'm like, wait a minute, is this even going to work? I haven't gotten a listing or anything like that. I haven't been doing what I'm supposed to be doing to be perfectly honest. But I'm thinking now, like, should I go back to the mortgages? I'm going to be taking a 2-week vacation here this month in October and coming back. I'm going to really think about it. Should I go back to doing mortgages as mortgage companies are hiring again and do the real estate as a part-time job? But I really want to focus at 100% as a real estate agent.
Okay, so that's what had you jump in the
So
call.
like, I want to throw in the towel, but then again, I'm hesitant.
Okay.
Not yet.
I love that. Thank you for your honesty and transparency. All right, who else? When you saw it today, what had you jump into this conversation?
I'll go.
All right.
What's up, guys? My name is Will. I'm new here.
Wait, your market. Don't forget your market, man.
I'm in Chino Hills, California, and out walking the dog. But no, this is this is an interesting topic because no matter how successful you are, this is a roller coaster for everybody, and it's just interesting because my wife and I both are entrepreneurs, and it's times we look at each other and we're like, man, sometimes I just want to go back to my job and do the mindless work, so just in the context of recruiting, of real estate, it's like, every 3 months or so, or every 6 months or so, you always feel like you're starting over, and you have to ask yourself, is it worth it? And in that same spirit, you're starting over, but you're starting over with all of the knowledge and everything you had in the past. So is it really starting over? But that's why I jumped on.
Love it. Thank you for sharing. Who else?
I'll go next, Casey. And just like Will, I'm also a recovering real estate agent. No, guys, Moses, home expansion team, Central California, specifically Kern County, for all your Bakersfield area referrals, we're definitely here. However, though, this is something that, just like Will said, this is, if you're in this business, this is you want to throw in the towel multiple times a week, a day, a month, a year, right? And as markets change, you remind yourself about why you're doing this and how you're doing it, and obviously the perks and all that. But for me, obviously, Casey, I support you. And when I saw that, I was like, yes, this is important, because as we do our skill mastery in the morning for listings, right? Listings is the place where, yes, you're going to want to throw the towel the most, because getting listings is one of the hardest, toughest things when you first start. So for us, man, I just wanted to push that class to everybody, because I've been through that process. I mean, I still deal with it all the time. So I think the only good thing that comes out of it is that your endurance gets better, your tolerance gets better, and you want to throw in the towel a little less when you first started. However, though, you still want to do it sometimes.
I love that. Okay, fantastic. Thank you for sharing. Who else? What had you jump on the call today based on our topic? This is so interesting. I'm going to take a little pause because we've got to pause. So everyone that is on the call today has taken time or space to be on the call today. And this question is relevant for every single person. And so if you were to take a moment of introspection, and there is a saying that how we do one thing is how we do everything. And just notice your experience of being on the call and being in this conversation. Are you disengaged from it? Are you multitasking, doing 15 things in the background, attempting to catch pieces of it? Are you kind of waiting to see what's happening, or what other people are going to say to then gauge how much you're actually going to share if you decide to share? And anything else that could be going on in this, in this dialogue where we've now got kind of this long pause and we've had 3 of the 15 people on here share so far.
So
If you were to take that, hold on, and you're to translate it to your life and business, if how you do one thing is how you do everything, my question is there a possibility that how you're doing the one thing called participating in this call right now, for whatever is going on in your mind and body, and you translate that to your business, how we do one thing is how we do everything, is there a connection or correlation where from the place of personal responsibility and the things that we do control, that you could be contributing to the experience that you're having of wanting to throw in the towel when you have that experience? Just a question for people to think about. Glenn, go ahead, jump in, and then I know someone else is going to come off, it looked like, and share.
So I didn't even know what the topic was. And so your question was specific around what made you join around throwing in the towel. So the reason I didn't say anything is because I had no idea. I was on a call with Selena and Laura earlier. Oh, and I'm Glenn Riggs. I'm from the San Francisco Bay Area. But so that's why I didn't say anything.
Okay. Love it. And that could be true for other people in the conversation as well. So for anyone that does want to share now, as to getting on the call, seeing the topic and being a part of this conversation, what is that for you that has you invested in being a part of this conversation today?
Yeah, Casey, for me, pretty simple. I saw the topic and obviously anybody that's a team builder, your downline has suffered over the last year and a half. And for me, I've had a lot of people quit, and I'm nowhere close to quitting. I'll never quit. But at the end of the day, I need to understand, what I can do better as a leader to help the people that aren't as resilient in this industry. Because unfortunately, I'm humble enough to admit that I don't do everything right, and that I know there's ways that I could support my team better. And I feel like that's when I saw it, I said, okay, let me hop on today to look at stuff from a different perspective.
I love that. And Zach Bach, you are from where, for everyone that
Temecula. I'm in Inland Empire, Riverside County.
Perfect. And Kim's the same thing. Okay, we're going to take one more share before we really jump into this conversation. And then it'll be a missed opportunity.
Casey, I'll go ahead and join because I think you were speaking to me when you're like, how you do one thing is how you do everything. I jumped on, Tina from Orange County, California. I jumped on the call because Rosie told me to, and I saw your name, and actually whatever you're associated with, I know it's going to be great. And so I did want to hear what was going on, but I think that what you just said was very important because how you do one thing is how you do everything, right? And so of course I was listening to everybody, but in the background I was like, okay, let me pay this bill while I do that. And I think that translates to when we do get to that throwing in the towel, we're like, you have to stop and think, what effort are you putting into it? What effort's going into what you're doing? Are you doing it half-assed? Are you, trying to multitask and you only give it half your effort? So that was a little bit of a Tina pay attention for me. So I appreciate that. Although I can only pay attention for about 15 more minutes because I do have a scheduled call with Leo. So.
Okay, perfect. So I appreciate your honesty and transparency, right? And it's this idea like, hey, wherever we're at is okay. There's no judgment around it. It's like a check-in, right? So for Glenn, I love the fact that you're like, I have no idea what I'm jumping on, but I'm jumping on something because I was on something before and this is where we're going next. So like, if you translate that out to how you do business and how you do life, you're like, oh, there's something to do and it's going to be great. Yeah, let's go. Right. And that is, those things translate. The multitasking, like, okay, yeah, have we all found ourselves multitasking, once, maybe multiple times? Absolutely. And then, what's the actual impact? Because how does multitasking impact intention, right? So if I have a very clear intention, it's going to be with a singular focus. And what I create when I have a clear intention and singular focus is going to be different than if I say, oh, I have that clear intention and now I've diluted that intention with 15 things because I'm going to multitask the other 14 while I hold my clear intention on this one. And the outcome is going to be totally different. So, as we jump in, I have talked about this of sorts before. However, we're going to talk about it in a different way today. One that is that you can use to coach yourself and move yourself. And then in the instance of someone like Zach that you're in the conversation with today, it's going to give you a tool and a framework to be able to help the people that you're in business with currently, or the people that you're going to be getting in business that will join your organization within EXP. And I find that having, just a deep understanding, like, hey, if I know what I'm dealing with, I can deal with it. It's when I don't know and have no idea where it's going that it's a little bit harder to deal with, and it feels like a roller coaster. Do you guys agree? Do you have that experience? It's like, hey, if I know that, this is what's going to happen along the way, then I can be prepared for it. I can, problem solve it ahead of time. It's not as much of an issue when it comes up because I'm ready for it. Yeah. So the truth is that there's a framework that will help you regardless of where you're at in business. Maybe you're approaching feeling like throwing in the towel. Maybe you feel that throughout the day. Maybe you don't feel that and you're clear that you're building this muscle called resilience, because every time that you get hit, you back up and you get back up quickly and you dust yourself off and you keep moving. So you keep a personal momentum of sorts. And as your resilience builds, that feeling of wanting to throw in the towel becomes further and farther between because of the discipline that you've created and the skills that you're really honing in. And so everyone's going to have their own experience with those things based on the integration of what you do and how you do them. And so what we're going to look at today is I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and jump into a conversation that some of you may have sort of seen. However, we're going to really deep dive into it today. And this is a roadmap. Do I have a big image on my screen that says stages right now? Because it's showing up.
You did, but it shifted. So whatever you did just a second ago, it shifted out.
Okay, so let me do that. And you're able to see it large. I went to make it bigger and that's what happened. It shifted out. So can we see it big enough there?
Nice and big. Perfect.
Nice and big. Okay, perfect. So when we talk about throwing in the towel, I want you to look at these two brick walls that are sitting on this image. And it's really important. So for Johnny in this conversation, I want you to focus on the first brick wall. For Zach, someone like Zach, I want you to focus on the second brick wall. And then everyone else that's on the call, you can self-identify, kind of where you're at and which one may be more appropriate for you. But there's three phases in business and life. If you look at the bottom, there's going to be that timeline that goes across the bottom, and this could be over months, years, or an entire lifetime. You can use this for a personal relationship. You can use this for your real estate sales business. You could use this for building, an organization within EXP. So the thing that I want you to focus on is that there's three main distinctive areas that are going to be related to what you're feeling, right? So when we're feeling like throwing in the towel, where do you see emotions that are along the bottom or feelings that are along the bottom that may be the ones that are most connected to wanting to throw in the towel? It's not a trick question. They're written sideways.
Stress.
Okay, stress could be the stress gets so high, you feel like you want to throw in the towel. What are some other feelings or emotions on this chart that may get to points where you feel like you want to throw in the towel?
Anxious.
Lost energy.
Anxious, lost energy. Great. What else? How about disillusioned? Like, this is not what I thought it was going to be. This is a lot harder than I thought it was going to be. Frustration. If you get frustrated enough, like, don't let the door kick you on the way out. Like, I don't need this. I'm going to go back to my job.
No paychecks.
No paychecks, right? Yeah. So if we look at those feelings or emotions, the reason why I want to point those out is because these are feelings and emotions that everyone has, not just you, not just one or two of the agents that you're working with. Everyone's going to have these at some point in time, and more than likely multiple points in time. But if we understand the process and the journey that we're actually on, then we can navigate those knowing they're normal. So if we know that they're normal, then the question becomes, okay, what am I going to choose to do to navigate this, knowing this is not a permanent situation, this is a temporary feeling, even if it's been, going on for a while. So if we look at the three stages that there's startup growth and advanced growth, and everyone gets excited, like Johnny, you're like, okay, I'm going to, come out of mortgage and I'm going to go into real estate. And of course you would have to feel excited about making that decision in order to do it and actually move that direction. Because if you didn't feel excited about it, chances are you're probably not going to take that direction anyway. Would you agree? So now you're here and you're like, okay, well, man, this is a lot more challenging than I thought it was going to be. And, getting the listings to happen and getting the transactions, like, been doing the work. And you said, okay, well, maybe I haven't actually been doing the work that I know is required to generate that outcome. So there's some great personal responsibility there. However, there's people running around that maybe don't have skill sets that they've developed elsewhere. Like you've developed a skill set in mortgage and they don't have the skill sets yet to create the outcomes here. And so now this emotion of being frantic and perhaps anxious because, holy smokes, I got bills to pay, I need to be doing business. These are all normal startup feelings. Now, the key thing about startup, Johnny, and I want you to make a note of this, is that 95% of people do not make it through startup. Only 5% of people make it through startup. 95% of people will go the other direction and quit when they hit that wall, that first wall. So what do you think? Just, this would be a place for people to chime in. What do you think the difference is between the 95% and the 5% in startup?
They saw results.
Okay, that could be.
I say grit.
Grit, that could be.
Resilience.
Resilience could be.
Your why you're doing it.
Your why, that could be. There is one thing, and it's much simpler than all the things that were shared, although all the things that were shared factor into it. They made a decision. A decision is death to all other options. If you look at the word decide, I know we've talked about this before. Everything that ends with side has to do with death, suicide, homicide, pesticide, right? Decision is drawing a line in the sand and going, doesn't matter what happens, I'm going to make this work. I'm going to do what it takes. I'm going to become who I need to become, and I'm going to keep going. So yes, there's grit involved. Yes, there's resilience involved. You may or may not get results in there, but there is a decision that gets made. So Zach, if you've got agents that are, if we look at the number of transactions that the average agent does, and then we look at what happens when a market shifts or an interest rate goes through the roof, and then what happens to those average numbers, and you're in this conversation of startup, this is a really important place to have a conversation with people and say, listen, only you can decide if you are the 5% or the 95%. And whether you are, whether you're not is like, okay, right? But let's just figure it out and draw a line in the sand right now and go, hey, I am going to throw in the towel, because I am not going to make the decision to commit that no matter what, I'm going to get the skills, build the resilience, and have the grit to go through this wall. And that's okay. Go back and get your job. Save people the pain. However, for the people that are going to be the 5%, you can say, great. So throwing in the towel is no longer in our conversation, regardless of what you feel like, because you have made a decision that this is what you're going to do and you're going to create success. And the timeline with which you create success by the way that you define it, by the way, not the way that I define it for me, because my definition of success for me is going to be different than your definition of success for you. The way that you are defining success is what's important. Hey, you're in the game. So here's for those of you that are taking notes, this is a really important piece. In startup, where 95% of people will quit and 5% of people will see it through, 2% of the money that is made in startup. 2%. If you look at this journey of going to advanced growth, 2% of the money will be made in the startup phase. So if you're working with someone that's starting up and they're like, man, I'm not making money. I'm not, I can't pay my bills. I'm not making enough money. Well, you want to know what the good news is? That's normal. 2% of the money is going to be made in startup. And so fantastic, you're on track. So let's accelerate those things, Johnny, that that there is to do to get it going, to do more, so that we increase what that 2% is going to be over time. Right. And because that 2% is going to be that energy and effort that someone puts in, and that's going to be reflective of those results. But if someone's in startup and they're getting great results, I mean, like we were on a call of a gentleman who is doing real estate as his second career in retirement and is working with a team where they are like very structured, very disciplined. And in 45 days, he's got 11 deals in escrow. Real estate agent for the first time in retirement, no real estate sales skills or, experience. His 2% in startup, if you look at the life of what his career is going to be based on the 2% he's making in startup, now that's pretty exciting. But it's important that you understand and remember these numbers so that as you're moving yourself through these phases where you feel like throwing in the towel, or you're working with people that do that, you just identify like, where are we at based on the emotions and if you've even created the results or not to get through this first brick wall. So the first brick wall is like the deciding. So for Johnny, and I keep coming back to you because it's like, okay, this is the deciding factor. And Will said the same thing. Am I going to go back and get a job? Am I going to go back to mortgage? Right? When we hit the wall, that wall is really important because that's where the decision gets made. The decision that I am in it to win it and I am staying in it because I'm the 5% or I'm not going to, right? Until people get to that wall, they're vacillating back and forth somewhere in those startup emotions, which are torturous, right? Because the idea of wanting to throw in the towel and not throwing in the towel and not having something else you're moving forward on is like purgatory, right? No one wants to stay in that space for long. So if we look at this first wall, it's like, okay, how do we get through this first wall if we make the decision that I am the 5%, I am doing this? So you'll notice below that it says invest. You've got to invest the time of actually doing the work, invest the learning of getting the skills that you implement to go out and do the work, and you've got to invest in yourself. So in this first wall, there is an investment of time, there is an investment of money. What could an example of that be? Well, EXP is coming up the third week in October, and there's many agents out there saying, yeah, I'm not doing enough business to do that. I don't have the money to do that. It's what, why are the ticket prices so expensive? All of these things of like, no, I need to stay home and work because I've got deals going. Those are not mindsets of people that are going to ever hit growth or advanced growth. Those are mindsets they're going to stay in struggle and more than likely throw in the towel at some point because the struggle is going to be too tough. Because what there is to do to get through that first wall is the investment. And the longer you stay in the first wall, now here's another really important thing. The longer you stay in the first wall, the bigger your results are going to be when you get to growth and possibly advanced growth. Let's say that one more time. The longer you hold yourself in the first brick wall, investing, skilling up, investing in yourself, learning, growing, like deep into the pool, the longer you hold yourself there, the bigger the return. It's like a slingshot on the other side. So you could hold yourself there for weeks, for months, or for even years. When I look at the journey of people that are at every event, people that bring people to events, people that show up and plug in the first and third weeks when we do these calls and other calls relating to their business. They are staying in the investing phase to learn and to grow. And what will happen with a lot of people is they'll get enough traction where they start to get some results and they pop out of the investing phase because they're getting the immediate gratification return that they need right now, that they were looking for. And so they're going to focus on what they've gotten and picked up and just go do that. But they stop investing to skill up, to get in those rooms, to be learning, to be growing. And so the trajectory of how they're going to grow and what they're going to be able to grow will directly correlate to that. So these are mindsets and skill sets that are really important to remember. But as you're in that brick wall and you're staying in it, and the longer that you're in it and you're doing those things, what's going to happen is that you're going to start to build confidence. And the confidence is the thing that even when you have days that go sideways, or a week that goes sideways, or a month that's going sideways, if you have built up the confidence internally because you have produced the results, you have gone out and done the work, and you can look back and see that you have evidence of that, and you've got the confidence, this is where the resilience quotient comes in and starts to build. And so when you pop into the other side of this brick wall where you start to get in growth, you're now going and doing those similar activities, but you're doing them with a totally different energy. I always say, he or she who's most certain wins. And Kim is like, you know, my soul sister in the horse department. And, you know, there's nothing more revealing than when you work with an animal that is, you know, thousands of pounds bigger than you. Like, forget it. You're not going to muscle that animal into doing anything. And you've got to have a confidence and energy, a posture, a certainty to have a horse follow you because of the energy that you bring and the leadership, and it wants to, it chooses to. This happens in our business too, from recruiting to sales, is that when you are with people in that way and you exude that confidence and it is about them and they are looking to you as a leader that is going to help them solve the problem that they have and sees you as the person that can help navigate that, that is a different experience to go out into business and life in. And so when you're in an attraction and recruiting conversation with other agents and you bring that confidence, when you're working with buyers and sellers on the other side of a transaction, or ones that you're working to develop and gain that relationship, and they feel that and they sense that from you, this is not a fake it till you make it. You don't fake confidence, because people can feel energy, they can read energy. And so confidence comes from the doing. It is the doing to develop the skills where the confidence gets built. So before we go into growth and what's going to happen in growth, which is where we don't throw in the towel and we ultimately get to, I want to pause because it's been a lot of information that I've thrown out. I want to give it a chance to disseminate, give you guys an opportunity to just share any aha that you had around it, or clarifying question that you might want to ask as far as this startup getting through the first brick wall part of the conversation that we're in so far.
Okay, Casey, I think it's great. Everything you said, it resonates with me. So like on the first wall that you mentioned, the whole investing in the learning I've been doing, investing in like even on Vulcan 7 to get the calls and everything else. So I'm really invested into this, right? And into myself and spending the money to get the business. And something you said, I just haven't been doing it. I should at 100%. So at that higher level is where I'm stuck.
Okay. Love that. So you have an awareness that it's really like you're doing some of the things, and this is really like the all-in piece of to do all the things to really get the outcomes that you're looking to create. Love that. Anyone else? If not, we'll keep moving. Okay, so in the context of throwing in the towel, once we start to see results and the growth starts to happen, these are not the times when people want to throw in the towel. These are the times that we all long for, live for, are working to get to. And so in this growth, now the feelings change. We get more of a relaxed intensity. Like it's I'm not emotionally attached to what you decide. I'm here to help you. I trust that, you know, there's plenty of business to do. There's plenty of people to do business with. There's plenty of agents that still haven't joined EXP. There's plenty of buyers and sellers out there. And I'm not going to sell my soul or sell you a can of goods to get your business. No, I've got the confidence, I've got the skills, I've got the value proposition, and it's a relaxed intensity now where you know that you can come at life and come at business with, I'm looking for the people that are looking for me and that don't really realize it until we find each other. And it's like, oh, there you are. Where have you been? And when you're in that space, operating in your business and your life every day, the throw in the towel conversation is not anywhere near that, because you're now in a cadence where you're congruent with the values that you have, the work that you're doing, where your time and energy is going, and you're getting results from the consistency of doing that over time. And that, if anybody wants to read about that, the consistency of doing things over time, The Compound Effect by Dr. Benjamin Hardy is one of my all-time favorite books, on how that idea of priming the pump on a well, you keep doing it, keep doing it, even though you don't see water. And all of a sudden there's all of this water that comes up from the consistency done in activities over time, even when you weren't seeing the results from doing them before that. And so this, and then when things start to grow, I mean, how many of you have ever been in business where, I mean, you have more than you can handle, on this idea of agent attraction? It's like, man, I've got groups coming in, I've got teams coming in, I've got brokerages coming in, like things are on fire and we're growing. How many of you have experienced that? Just by a show of hands. Okay, if you haven't experienced it, that's what's ahead of you as you continue. And when you do experience that, now this is like, oh my goodness. I mean, I remember, do I still have Will? I'm going to stop my share real quick because it reduces who I can actually see on the page. Where did Will Higgins go? Is he still with us?
Yeah, he dropped.
He dropped. Okay. So Will Higgins, by way of example, when he first came to EXP, it was like 3 years ago, and he got sent to me because he'd never recruited anybody in his life. He wanted to build an organization. He wanted to have 100 agents by the end of the year, by the end of his first 12 months. And so we sat down, we went through Builders Boot Camp, which is a whole segment that you'll find on Empire Builders Pro website under attraction and recruiting. Did that work together, taught him the system of how to grow, build, and scale. He engaged with it and he did it. And at the end of the year, there was 100 agents in his organization. Now that was a lot of work, right? It was implementing the new skills that were previously unknown and unlearned, and getting up close and familiar with those and doing the work consistently while selling real estate full time. So, you know, he would tell you that that was a pretty, the feelings attached to that. And I know, because I worked closely with him and coached him that the feelings associated with that were pretty incredible. It's like, oh, wow, look at what just, you know, that works, right? And this idea, if you've never had a residual and not residual leveraged. If you've never had a leveraged income, meaning income that doesn't come directly from your time and energy, right? So in this context of revenue share for building an organization, EXP is turning around and giving away money in revenue share for transactions that happen from agents that you're in business with, that you haven't physically touched those transactions. You don't know the buyers or the sellers. But because you have the relationship with the agent and you're working together with the agent in this community, EXP is paying you revenue share for doing that. When someone has never experienced a leverage income and they experience it, that feeling, that emotion associated with it is pretty incredible. And then when you have an organization of 100 agents in a market that is hot and things are cranking and you're looking and you've got leveraged income, that's like, wow, this is a good portion of my monthly nut to crack. And then when that happens and, oh, what if it is cracking my monthly nut now? And the feeling and emotion of what happens when you know that you have income outside of what you're personally doing every day in your sales business, that is a game-changing, life-changing experience. Because what you sign up for in real estate, when you sign up in real estate, is that you're as good as your last transaction. So you need to keep those closings coming, or you don't have food on the table or a roof over your head. The exciting part about that is that, you know, to the ability that you're willing to perform, you can create as much as you want without leverage, but then you add in this component of leverage and it's a game changer. So if we go back to the illustration that we were looking at working off of today, in this context of throwing in the towel. And Selena, will you confirm that you can see it good? We're filling up the screen. Thank you, Laura. is, we'll get to, if you never had it, here's what, and if you know this is coming, and this is what is going to make you want to throw in the towel down the road, is if you go into payback when you start getting the results. And payback can look like a lot of things. It can look like taking your foot off the gas. You see agents do this in transactions all the time. I've got 2 or 3 deals in escrow, and so they stop lead generating for new business because I got 2 or 3 deals in escrow. So they stop doing the things because they're in a payback mode of what's going to be coming in based on what's on the table right now. You see this with people building organizations within EXP. Wow, man, I'm getting like $3,000, $5,000, $10,000 a month in revenue share, and wow, whoo, I can lean back now. I don't need to, don't need to focus as much because I've got this leveraged income coming in. Well, guess what? Things are either in a state of growth or they're in a state of decay, period. And so where many people have a blind spot that they don't know is going to be a blind spot is they will go into this euphoria and payback and pay themselves back, change what they were doing to get to where they got that place to be. And then before you know it, the next emotion that comes up in growth is frustration. Oh man, I'm starting to have attrition now. Oh man, the interest rates changed. I'm not doing as many deals. Oh man, this is, not as easy as I thought it was going to be. Oh man, people aren't joining the organization, as fast as they were before, or, they're feeling frustrated or stressed because of changes that are going on, in the marketplace, or maybe that are going on for them personally. And so when you get to these spaces of these feelings, somebody that's feeling stressed or disillusioned does not mean that they are not in startup. You have got to know who you're talking to. So Zach, if you've got agents that are in your organization that have never actually gotten to a payback that's euphoric, and it's not buying a new car, it's like one that's a life-changing payback. If they've never gotten to growth, they're still in the phase of building and growing to get to that place. I'm talking about payback when you've had a big payback, like you go buy a new house because you've got a big payback. You do something that is significant to pay yourself back, and you sit back differently than you were before at the way that you're engaged. So this leads to stress and disillusionment, which if you check out the next wall, look at the size of that baby. At least, 2.5 times, almost 3 times as big as the wall that you are going to go through and navigate once you decide you're the 5% that is committed, because you've decided and you're committed to getting into growth and making it work. So we're going to pause here because I want you to write this down if you're taking notes. Of the growth phase, people that actually get into growth and do that is the 5%, right? It's the 5% of people that decided this, line in the sand. I'm going to make this work. I'm going to build the skills. I'm going to become resilient. I'm going to exercise the grit. I'm going to do it. Are there times I'm going to feel like throwing in the towel? Absolutely. But I don't care because I've decided this is where I am. It's like being married, it's different than dating. You make a decision to be married, you're married, right? You're dating, you're like, yeah, we'll see what happens next week. Yeah, put a ring on it. Well, maybe at some point. Not today. Maybe at some point, baby. Maybe at some point. It is a different story than being married, where you're like, I'm married. I'm decided. Like, here's where I'm at, right? I am all in. So for people that actually are that 5% that get to growth and you get a big payback, write this down. Of that 5% of people, only 2% will ever get into advanced growth. Only 2% will ever get into advanced growth. And advanced growth is where, for whatever you've defined for you that success looks like, we're talking huge legacy, we're talking generational impact, we're talking you don't have to get up and be anywhere that you don't choose to get up and be ever again in your life for the rest of your life, and your family benefits for generations. That's advanced growth. Of the 5% of people that get into growth, 2% will go to advanced growth. Now, there's a commonality of the people that go from growth to advanced growth between the ones that went from startup to growth. What do you think that commonality is? Of the 5% that get to growth, what determines the 2% that will get to advanced growth? This is not a trick question. I've been saying it all throughout. Yay! Johnny's got it. It's a decision. I am making the decision. Like, listen, I'm getting results. I'm getting good results. I'm sustaining my family and the business. I'm building an organization and it's halfway covering my monthly nut. I'm building an organization and it's completely covering my monthly nut. Oops. The market shifts, the interest rates go up, there's attrition, it's covering half of my monthly nut. That does not mean I'm throwing in the towel because I made a decision that this is what I'm doing, this is where I'm going, this is what I'm building. And my decision and commitment is that I'm building it for freedom, legacy, impact. And because I have decided that, it does not matter what happens to the interest rates. It does not matter how many people leave my organization or how fast they're coming into it or who decides to stay. The right people will stay, and I'm going to stay on that. And because I have made the decision and I am the one that is committed to that, it is an inevitability that when I have the skills, which will be a different set of skills, to go through that second wall, which is going to be bigger, which is going to be harder because, listen, the amount you got, you know, if you have small goals, you're going to have small resistance. If you have big goals, you're going to have big resistance. That is the bottom line. The bigger the goals and the bigger your vision, the bigger the obstacles that you're going to have to navigate, to overcome, because the point of the whole thing is the person that you become in the process of doing that. And for somebody that's got small goals, it's just like, I want to live an okay life and take one vacation a year. And that's my idea of success. Okay, great. You're going to have some friction and resistance, and that's not going to be near the friction or resistance or challenge of somebody that says, I want to go into advanced growth and create legacy and impact and freedom like I've never had. I just had lunch with somebody yesterday on Sunday, and the person will remain nameless, but she's a billionaire and you would never know it. Her husband was amazing. And as a couple, they created incredible things and they have, you know, a massive family. And, you know, he passed away a year ago, January. And she said, you know, have you figured out what your next is going to be now that, you know, that Rick's passed? And what's next for you? And so we were talking about what was next. And she says, what was next for us in this phase is, you know, we've got 5 kids, 18 grandkids, and worked really hard all these years and, you know, came from nothing. So we're not talking trust fund babies. They came from nothing. And so, yes, there's things that are being done for the kids, but the majority of what they created and what they were going to be doing in this chapter of their lives is figuring how and where they were going to give it all away. You know, billion with a B, not million with an M. You know, being a millionaire is like what it used to be to make $100,000 a year until you make $100,000 a year. And you're like, how am I going to live on $100,000 a year? Right? The millionaire is not the mark any longer. Like that is not necessarily freedom. That's not going to sustain someone through 25 years of retirement unless they're living in a place that has it's a very low cost of living, right? Times have changed. What it takes to make things happen have changed. So did they get to advanced growth? Based on results, yeah, they've got a thriving, flourishing family. And because of what they did in business to go and, you know, create that net result where, oh yeah, I'm playing with $1 billion, right? And a belief that if they give it to their children, it will poison them because it will take away the drive and work ethic that they have to go create and become who they're going to be. So they're not going to poison their children by giving it all to them. So they're looking at where is it going to in their life and where causes they've got passion about. That is what advanced growth looks like. And that might not be your goal. And that's totally okay if that's not your goal. That's not everybody's goal. But the important thing to know is that if that is your goal, you're going to feel like throwing in the towel if you don't know the roadmap of how to actually get to that. Or what your version of that is, right? It might not be $1 billion. I mean, that's a big number for a lot of people. That's not my number. That's not what freedom, legacy, impact looks like. For me, my number is much smaller, right? And so there's no judgment on what that looks like. But that second brick wall, this is where, and this is important for those of you that are building organizations, and this is also translatable to the real estate sales industry right now. Research what people do in the second brick wall once they've felt frustrated, stressed, and disillusioned long enough is they're going to go start researching. Well, I wonder what it would look like to work with this agent. I wonder if I'll pay less if I work with this agent. I wonder what they're going to do for me if I work with this agent versus maybe someone they've had a relationship with over a period of time. In the context of an organization within EXP, This would be where, you've got agents in your organization that aren't seeing the results they want to see, or, the natural attrition that happens that's part of the organization. And now there's like bright, shiny objects of 27 other cloud-based companies that have popped up. Well, I wonder if there's something better out there, and so people start researching stuff to justify or find something in this research phase where it's like, well, maybe I'm not in the right spot doing the right thing. When, it's 99% of the time that they haven't been doing the right thing, or they stopped doing the things that were working, right? So there is a strategy to get through the second brick wall. And what I want to point out before we talk about that strategy is that, again, of the 5% that get to growth, 2% will actually get to advanced growth because they're going to navigate that second brick wall. And in the second brick wall, there's 3 on the other side. You will have advanced growth, which is what happens. If you do nothing and just kind of plateau, that's actually an early decline, because plateau is not a plateau really. It's decline that you're not seeing yet. And if there's plateauing decline, then what happens is people will feel, lost, low energy, and they will start over. They'll go find a new startup. They'll go start something else. But for the people that decide they're going to go into advanced growth, the 5 key things is what the strategy is to get into advanced growth. So Zach, you may have different people in your organization. You may be one of these people, right, that's navigating the growth to advanced growth strategy, or other people that you're working together with. And so the 5 key things are identity, relationships, responsibility, skills, and purpose. So I'm going to break these down quickly and briefly. Identity is, who are you? Not what do you do? Who are you? Right? So if I look at Rick by way as an example, his advanced growth identity in the last few years was that he was somebody that was changing the next generation and the future of real estate for agents to have a totally different journey and path than the one that he'd had as an individual agent that went to managing offices, that went to owning franchises, only to have a crazy market come along, lose it all, be lost with, end up with a lot of debt and starting over from nothing with, 1.4 million in debt in his early 50s. So his identity became that he was going to be a catalyst to help agents find freedom by building a business, not just selling real estate, building businesses over the platform of EXP that was going to change the trajectory so that they did not have to have those experiences. That was part of his identity in advanced growth. The second thing is relationships. The relationships being who are going to be the key relationships that you surround yourself with and that you surround yourself with regularly, that have already created what you want, that are further down the road in the path that you are, that are going to help lift and elevate you. And are you going to stay close to those relationships and plug in and nurture and foster them? Or are you, when you feel like throwing in the towel, going to jump on a call like this and go, oh, what do I do to not throw in the towel? Are you going to stay close and like have that be an intentional part of growth to where the strength and where the rocks are that based on results, have the results that you want? I'm not talking about people blowing smoke or selling programs. I'm talking about results that have created the results that you want, that if you follow that path, you will get there. The third thing is responsibility, and that is the 80-20 rule, doing the 20% and delegating or outsourcing the 80%. And getting very clear on where the highest return of your energy and time is going to come, and not touching anything that does not involve that. It is impossible to get to advanced growth unless you execute that strategy. The fourth thing is skills. There's going to be a different set of skills, and their next layer of skills in listening, in communication, in strategy, in negotiation, that it's going to require to get you into advanced growth, because you're going to be in front of audiences that demand and require a different level of skills. And then the fifth thing is redefining or being very clear on what that purpose is, your personal purpose. That is, yeah, someone said it, it's the why. And it can be deeper than the why. It can be the what you know. I mean, if I listen to Rick speaking at the last Build event in 2023, he said, God put me on this earth. I feel like God raised me to help people live a better life. That was his purpose, right? Now, we had goals around that as far as agents that we wanted to be in partnership with the organization and lives that we wanted to touch from that perspective, and the philanthropic stuff that we did and where we donated and gave our time and give our time and all of those things. But that purpose was very simple and very clear. That is an example of an advanced growth purpose. Like God raised me to help people live a better life. And that was everything he did and everything he used. So what is your actual purpose on the planet? Those 5 things, when honed in, are going to be the roadmap when executed to get you to advanced growth. And what you'll notice is once you get into advanced growth, oh, there's another wall, because the whole thing starts all over again. And so when you get your head wrapped around the fact that you are forever and perpetually going to be in growth or decay, whichever one you choose, and that you will be the deciding factor on if you're ever going to get to growth. And if you do get to some kind of growth, if you're going to get to advanced growth, that's up to you. We know the map. We know what there is to do. And now it's just a matter of the execution of actually doing that. And to know and have grace and understand along the way that all of those feelings and emotions that are going to naturally come up because it's part of being human are normal. Having those feelings and emotion is not an indication that you're in the wrong place. Feeling like you want to throw in the towel does not mean you're not meant to sell real estate. Feeling like you want to throw in the towel does not mean that, you're not meant to be here, building and growing an organization with an EXP. I mean, heck, I texted Selena this morning. I said, throw in the towel. Ha, ha, ha. I want to throw a towel over my face and put on some SPF and listen to waves gently lapping the shore while I have my feet in some white sand and my eyes closed, right? We were kind of joking about that. However, I got advanced growth strategy going on here and a big purpose to live out. And it's normal to have times where you're gonna feel like both, right? And so if you can wrap your head around that and go, oh, that's not I totally am for signs, but feeling like you want to throw in a towel is not a sign that you should throw in the towel. Hello. If you've made a decision, you can be like, okay, yeah, that's great. I feel like that, except for here's the decision I made. So this is what I'm actually going to do. And this is where the resilience muscle and factor, comes into play. And what I will tell you this is when you develop that, it is not something that any market, any economy, or anything that happens financially can ever take away from you. Markets will go up and down. Money can come and go. But when you have done the work to get yourself into growth and an advanced growth space in your business, in your life, come or go, it doesn't matter, because you have inside what has been built as a result of weathering those storms and working through them because of the decisions that you've made and the commitments that you have. So with that, I'm going to open it up for any comments, questions, shares as we wrap it up, knowing that the top of the hour is technically the wrap up for this conversation. The recording will be found on the resources page of Empire Builders Pro if you want to go back to it. We do have that graphic as well that is there under the resources tab that you can go pull up if you want to go grab the graphic and use it in conversations of people that you're working with, agents, or if you want it up in your office as a reminder to yourself to know where you're at and where you're going and the decisions and the commitments that you've made. And when you're feeling those feelings like, hey, okay, I'm human, fantastic. And what are we doing? All right. Comments, questions, feedback, anything you feel compelled or just have burning on your mind and heart that you want to share. We'll take those before we wrap up today.
The universe knew I needed to be here, and I am so glad I stayed.
Love you, Glenn.
Love you back.
This was really good. Sorry, our camera went off, but thank you so much. We're all the team here at Home Expansion, and we're like blown away with everything because we're like starting off and putting up our how would I say, like our starting. So we're working a lot on our skills. So it was just like we're all excited, like we're all blown away.
I love that. And you guys, I mean, Mo and Maria are incredible examples of people committed to skilling up. I mean, the skills that they've got you in and practice every morning before you go out into the world of business is amazing. And you've got an incredible community there of support in addition to everybody that's here. So good job for you for doing the work.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep. All right, fantastic. Well, that wraps it for today. Great to see all of you, and upward and onward. Throwing in the towel is a piece of the conversation. It's not the total conversation. Let's go create amazing things. We'll see you all in Miami. If you haven't registered for the yacht party yet, do that, because that is happening Monday night. It is a paid event. And if you are not registered for it, you won't be on the boat. So if you're coming and you want to attend, we want to have everybody that's part of our organization there that wants to be. So make sure you do that. If you're like, what are you talking about, Casey, and you haven't seen that, you can reach out to Selena or me, and we will get you the details for that. There's Selena up there. And everyone, make it a great day, and we will see you. Well, actually, we have the Free Friday coaching call this week, which is going to be for people that are looking to get business with builders in the real estate space. So if that topic is of interest to you or anyone that's in your organization, 9 a.m. on freefridaycoachingcall.com. We're having Dan Stanek that I'll be interviewing that has a specialty in that. So if that's a market or a niche in the market you'd like to carve out, join us and let your people know. All right. Make it a great day, everyone.
Thank you,
Casey.
Casey.
Appreciate it.
You're welcome. Bye.
Thanks all.